The old order had long since crumbled. In its place, scattered kingdoms rose, fought, and fractured, each laying claim to the legacy that once was. But in the heart of Europe, a bold new vision was quietly taking shape, and soon, in a moment of ceremony, a crown would be placed, rekindling an imperial idea that many thought was lost to time. Hello, and welcome to Impactful Moments, where we explore some of the most, you guessed it, impactful moments in human history. If history is your thing, or you simply enjoy learning new topics, please consider liking and subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us to continue creating captivating, impactful, historical content. In this video, we will explore the formation of the Holy Roman Empire, a political and religious experiment that created the Europe we know today. In the centuries after the fall of the Western Roman Empire in 476, Europe fragmented into a patchwork of localized kingdoms. Roman infrastructure and law lingered, but centralized authority collapsed. Germanic tribes filled the void. The Visigoths in Iberia, Ostrogoths in Italy, and Franks in Gaul under the Merovingians. Power shifted constantly. The Byzantine Empire briefly reclaimed Italy and North Africa for Rome, but the Lombards soon seized much of the peninsula. In the west, Muslim forces crossed from North Africa into Iberia, establishing Al-Andalus, while Britain was contested by Anglo-Saxons and Viking raiders. Yet, amidst this instability, two forces steadily centralized: the Franks and the Church. The Franks, one tribe among many, eventually united much of Western and Central Europe under the Carolingians, creating the most powerful realm since Rome's collapse. Meanwhile, the Catholic Church, drawing authority from its imperial roots, expanded across Europe. By the 8th century, the Pope had immense spiritual influence, offering a unifying Christian identity that transcended borders, with authority stretching from Britain to Constantinople. The alliance between these two powers proved transformative. As the Merovingians faded, Pepin the Short, the first Carolingian king, seized control, secured papal backing, and defeated the Lombards, granting the Church formal rule over central Italian lands, later known as the Papal States. His son, Charlemagne, would deepen this bond, defending Christendom and uniting much of the European continent. Recognizing Charlemagne's vast power and loyalty, Pope Leo III crowned him Emperor of the Romans in 800, a title that directly challenged the Byzantine Empire, which still claimed to be Rome's rightful heir. Though Charlemagne's empire was the most united Europe had seen since antiquity, its cohesion quickly unraveled. His only legitimate heir, Louis the Pious, inherited the throne in 814, but struggled to manage the sprawling empire. After Louis's death, power struggle erupted among his sons, culminating in the Treaty of Verdun in 843, which divided the empire into three parts. West Francia, under Charles the Bald, would eventually evolve into the Kingdom of France. Middle Francia, a geopolitically important but unwieldy stretch of land from the Low Countries to northern Italy, were granted to Lothair, and East Francia, ruled by Louis the German, encompassed the Germanic territories east of the Rhine. Middle Francia quickly splintered into smaller kingdoms, like Lotharingia and the Kingdom of Italy. East Francia, though more cohesive for a time, eventually fell into disunity after the deposition of Charles the Fat in 888, who failed to respond effectively to Viking threats, marking the effective end of Carolingian authority. In the power vacuum that followed, local dukes of Saxony, Bavaria, Swabia, and Franconia, known as the Stem Duchies, grew increasingly autonomous, often placing loyalty to their own regions above any imperial unity. The Carolingian line ended when these nobles elected Conrad of Franconia, the first non-Carolingian king. However, true stability did not begin to return until his successor, Henry of Saxony, later known as Henry the Fowler, took the throne. Elected in 919, Henry's pragmatic approach favoring negotiation with dukes over confrontation gradually restored unity. However, his reign was still plagued by external threats, particularly from Viking raiders in the north and the Magyars in the east. The Magyars, a nomadic steppe people who had established the Grand Principality of Hungary, terrorized Central Europe with swift cavalry raids. While Henry held them off temporarily by paying tribute, the threat remained. Upon his death in 936, the throne passed undivided to his son, Otto I. Otto proved a far more assertive ruler. He imposed his authority on the fractured duchies, putting down several uprisings from his brothers, sons, and sons-in-law. He elevated loyal bishops and expanded his influence through both military and political means. His defining military moment came in 955, at the Battle of Lechfeld, where he crushed the Magyars in a decisive victory, not only ending decades of devastating invasions, but also securing his position as a leader capable of protecting and unifying the realm. Back in the former lands of Middle Francia, unity had long since dissolved. As noted, the region had splintered into several unstable regions, including Lotharingia, which was eventually annexed by Henry the Fowler in 925, and the Kingdom of Italy. In the Italian peninsula, political power changed hands frequently, as local nobles, rival kings, and foreign claimants struggled for dominance. One such figure, Berengar II of Ivrea, managed to seize control of the Italian kingdom by 950. Under the pretenses of protecting Queen Adelaide from Berengar's abduction, Otto successfully invaded Italy, proclaiming himself king. He eventually reconciled with Berengar, allowing him to govern Italy under Otto's rule. However, Berengar rebelled in 957 and attacked the Papal States in 960, threatening their autonomy and undermining the authority of Pope John XII. With no military of his own, the Pope turned to Otto for aid. Seeking an opportunity to defend the church, expand his influence, and solidify his position in Christianity, Otto crossed the Alps in 961 and swiftly defeated Berengar, further asserting his authority in Italy. In early 962, Otto entered Rome. In a ceremony echoing Charlemagne's, Pope John XII crowned him Emperor of the Romans, and with this, a new imperial era had begun. One that blended religious authority, imperial legacy, and, to an extent, centralized rule, and the Kingdom of Germany became a Holy Roman Empire. With Otto now crowned emperor, the newly defined Holy Roman Empire began to reshape daily life across Central Europe. Unlike the tightly controlled administrations of Rome or Byzantium, the empire functioned as a collection of semi-autonomous duchies, bishoprics, and principalities. The emperor held theoretical authority over the entire area, but practical governance was often delegated to local rulers. This dual structure, centralized in theory yet fragmented in practice, meant that power dynamics varied widely depending on region and ruler. In some areas, the emperor's presence brought unity and protection. In others, tensions flared as dukes resisted outside interference, laying the groundwork for centuries of internal negotiation and often instability. Otto's coronation provoked outrage in Constantinople. At the time, the Byzantine throne was changing hands through internal upheaval, and Emperor Nicephorus Phocas refused to acknowledge Otto's title, referring to him dismissively as King of Germany. Still, while Byzantines remained proud of their imperial legacy, more immediate concerns and the realities of geographic distance forced them to pragmatically tolerate another emperor in the west. And the next-in-line Byzantine emperor, John Tzimitsky's daughter, Theophano, even married Otto's son, creating somewhat of a political alliance between the empires. With war averted, Otto was free to continue consolidating power at home, while also elevating the prestige of the Western Church. His rule gave the Pope a partner in political legitimacy and spiritual authority that would rival his Eastern counterpart in Constantinople. The evolving relationship between the new empire and the papacy had both immediate and long-term consequences, not just for the empire itself, but for the broader Christian world. The Pope, having crowned Otto and having granted him legitimacy, now had a reliable Western partner separate from the oft-distant and politically entangled emperors in Constantinople. Over the following decades, this division between Western and Eastern authority became more pronounced. The Church in Rome, once nominally linked to Constantinople, now operated in closer coordination with Western rulers. With two distinct political and religious hubs emerging, one centered in the Latin West under the Pope and Holy Roman Emperor, and the other in the Greek East under the Patriarch and Byzantine Emperor, the stage was set for an eventual break. The Great Schism of 1054 would formalize this division, but the foundations may have been laid much earlier, in moments like Otto's coronation, where the idea of a permanently divided Christian world began to take institutional shape. While Otto's coronation marked a beginning, the term Holy Roman Empire wouldn't be used for centuries. Some historians argue that the empire's true origins lie earlier, with Charlemagne's coronation in 800, viewing Otto's crowning as a revival or continuation rather than a clean start. Others contend that Otto's consolidation of power and more institutionalized relationship with the church marked a fundamentally new chapter. Regardless of the exact starting point, the institution that emerged would become the most enduring and influential political body in post-Roman Europe. It lasted nearly a millennium, adapting through crusades, plagues, reformations, and revolutions, finally meeting its end in 1806, amidst the sweeping transformations of the Napoleonic Wars. Few polities in world history have matched its longevity, and fewer still its ability to shape the identity of a continent. Its influence on the cultural and national development of Europe cannot be overstated. The empire played a formative role in the evolution of many modern European states. From the old Frankish territories emerged proto-national identities that would ultimately help define places like Germany, Austria, Hungary, and various Slavic regions. Even France, though it would diverge from the imperial structures, evolved in part through its interactions and rivalries with the empire. In this way, the HRE acted as both a stabilizing center and a crucible of cultural differentiation. Yet, for all its symbolic unity, the Holy Roman Empire defied easy categorization. Its structure, borders, and leadership shifted constantly. At times, emperors wielded centralized authority, bolstered by strong dynastic ties or ecclesiastical support. At others, the realm fractured into loose confederations of duchies, bishoprics, and free cities that answered more to local customs than imperial law. The very nature of the empire's leadership, where kings were elected by princes and where the title of emperor was often negotiated with the papacy, meant that its internal politics were as dynamic as its geography. Religion, too, would remain both a pillar and a pressure point. The Holy Roman Empire stood at the center of two of the greatest schisms in Christian history. The East-West split of 1054, which formalized the divide between Orthodox and Catholic Christianity, and the Protestant Reformation, which fractured Western Christianity from within. Though not solely responsible, the empire's contested religious and political structures created the environment in which these breaks occurred. Voltaire's famously cynical remark that the empire was neither holy nor Roman nor an empire reflects the confusion that many felt about its nature, but historians have since pushed back, arguing that it was all three, in critical and evolving ways. Holy in its mission to unite Christianity and religious influence, Roman in its attempted structure and ideological lineage, and an empire in its ambition, however messy its reality may have been. Ultimately, the Holy Roman Empire was never about perfect unity or unchallenged power. Its legacy lies in its persistence, its ability to navigate upheaval and adapt across centuries. It was not a rebirth of Rome, but rather a reinvention, a new framework that helped guide Europe from the chaos of early medieval fragmentation towards something resembling order, tradition, and eventually modernity. In the long shadow of Rome, the empire Otto began cast a light of its own. I hope you enjoyed this video and found this period in history both informative and enlightening. Please feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below, and I hope you can join us for another video. Thanks for watching.